What's going on, guys? It's your boy Toph. In this video I'm going to show you how to install Active Directory domain services for a domain environment. So once you have the server, you can connect through a VNC or RDP. If you have that enabled, you can enable RDP here in the server and allow connections, okay, and then apply. And that's how you can get to the server without going through a VNC like Hyper-V. But we're not going to enable in this case. We'll just go ahead and install Active Directory domain services. So we'll want to click Manage here, Add Roles and Features, Role-Based Feature Administration, next, and then we want to install domain services. If you're going to connect a machine to your domain services, you're going to want DNS server. These can be installed on a machine or separately, but you'll definitely want DNS because you'll have to point your endpoints or Windows 10, 11 devices to a DNS server to contact domain services. In this case, we're not going to create a full-blown environment, so we'll just install Active Directory domain services. Don't believe there's anything in here, so we should be good. We can click Next. It's going to ask you some Azure stuff. If you want to do Azure Active Directory Connect, you can configure that here, but we're not going to do that, so we'll click Next and install. Alright, so this will go through and then it automatically installs DNS server tools, but this is not a full-blown DNS administration, so keep that in mind. Typically you want to install these at the same time, but in this case we don't need DNS because we're not going to connect any laptop devices or endpoints. Alright, the installation just succeeded, so we're good there. We'll close. Click this little flag up here, and then we want to promote this server to a domain controller. We can add this to an existing domain. Keep in mind your DNS needs to be set to add it to your existing domain. This is how you could do an upgrade from like 2008 or 2016 domain functional levels to 2022 or whatever you're looking to do. You would just add this to your existing domain and then demote your older controllers, and then once all your older ones, like your 2008 ones, are done, you can actually go into the domain and promote the server, or not promote the server, but change the domain functional level. In this case, we don't have an existing forest, so we're going to add it, and we're going to choose a domain here. We'll click Next. Alright, so here's your forest functional level. You can do 2016. It looks like is the highest, so we'll leave that. And then we're going to set a DSRM password. This is something that you should write down. Typically it'll be different for every domain controller in an enterprise environment, or it could be the same depending on your needs. But you'll want to write this down because if you ever go into a catastrophic failure with multiple domain controllers and your database isn't working and you need to get back to a production standpoint, you'll want to know this password to do that restoration. Then in this case, there's no DNS found or authoritative, so we didn't install DNS, so we can't create anything. It's grayed out, so we'll just Next. It's going to verify a NetBIOS name. And then once this verification is completed, I will be back. Alright, so the NetBIOS name is done here. This would be like what we call whack whack when you log into a server, or not log into a server, but when you do file services or something like that. Or this would be the start of your domain, so it would be like my username when I log into a machine. If I added an endpoint, would be this, and then whatever your username is how you would log into your machines once it's attached to a domain. But in this case, we'll just leave this NetBIOS name alone. It's going to ask you where you want to save your database folder, log files, and your sysvol. Typically you'll want to put this on separated volumes, but in this case we'll just leave it as default. Then it's going to review your options. You'll click Next. It's going to run through some checks, and then if there's any issues, it'll tell you here in this box, and then we'll be able to install this. So it came back with a few issues, but nothing critical. Everything passed, so we'll go ahead and install. Alright, so it was successfully configured as a domain controller. We'll go ahead and close this out. Everything is good, so now you'll see your AD domain services here in your DNS server tools. It is going to restart, so I'll be right back after the restart. Alright, so the server restarted. You can see now we see the TOEF Media / administrator. So we'll log in here. Server Manager is going to boot, but if you click on the start here, you'll see your Active Directory sites and services, Administrative Center, and then Active Directory users and computers that we're all used to. And then you'll be able to create OUs for your devices by right mouse clicking new organizational unit and then typing whatever name, and then there's your OU. Once you have that, if you had multiple sites over a VPN network, you can go into sites and services, make sure your syncs are set up correctly. In here, so we only have one, which is a global catalog server, so there isn't going to be any sync options, but you have a few options here. Typically domain admins have every rights. It's one of the highest rights in a server environment. That's sites and services, that's Active Directory users and computers, and then of course what we all know, group policy management. And what group policy management is you can create specific policies for your devices when they live in either OUs, when their computer is added to the domain, so you can manage their devices. Like, I don't want devices to shut down when I close the lid on my laptop. I can add all these settings, and I can create that GPO here. And there's the new GPO, and then I can right mouse click and edit, and then I can change whatever settings I want. So group policy preferences, I can add registry keys to the server, basically anything. I can remotely manage the device that's added to the domain. And so we don't have DNS set up, so I can't add a device to the domain, but basically I can create a user account in here once I have that device created or added to the domain and DNS set up. I can add a user account here. We'll just do something basic. Perfect. So now that I have this user account here, so any device that I connect to my domain, I can log into using this user account. And this is what a lot of enterprise use in their Active Directory forests. It's very widespread in enterprise environments. There is now Azure's Active Directory, or their new Entra ID, that'll give you these same things, but up in the cloud. It is more expensive, so a lot of customers decide to do this on premise. That's how to set up Active Directory. Domain services.